confirmation of the agenda. That the Council of North Huron accept the agenda for December 17th, 2018 council meeting as presented. Do I have? Mr. Seitz moves, seconder. Faulkner. Sorry, Chris Palmer. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interests. Mr. Seitz?
Yeah, I just want to, I did provide the clerk with check number 503367. That's on the bills and accounts. Under 4.2.1, there's a check. That check is made out to my spouse, who's an employee of the daycare staff.
Thank you.
So I will not be voting on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Any others? The consent agenda. That the Council of North Huron hereby adopt consent agenda 4.1.1 to 4.1.6. And further, the Council of North Huron hereby receive consent items 4.2 to 4.3.2 for information. Do I have a mover? Kevin Faulkner. And Anita's going to second it. Anita Van Hinderman. On the ones that we just did there, this is our opportunity right now. I'm not sure if all council knows. This is our opportunity to speak out about any of the minutes if we have any questions through everything. So obviously everybody would have read these ahead of time, and if there was any questions pop up, now would be the time to ask them. Quite often we'll have questions about the bills and accounts. Sometimes could be something in any of those. So before we move on, is there anyone that would like to question anything in the 4 series, I'll call it, on what you read? Seeing none, we shall move on.
Oh.
Yes.
This is 421.
Mm-hmm.
The bills and accounts.
Yes.
There was an item for Grand Valley Roofing, $101,000. It was the roof of the daycare center. So there was a check cut to them. But then in another report further down, it mentioned that Huron County paid for everything. So I was just confused.
So if we could put that over to Sean.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Reeve. The way the fund, it's just a matter of the way the funding flowed. We paid the roofing company, submitted the invoices to the county,
And get reimbursed.
and they're reimbursing
Fine.
for the $100,000.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Could I have a show of hands then? Pass that. Questions?
I still do.
Yes, go ahead.
It's just concerns.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Sorry, to be late on that. It's just the general shortfall. How's that going to get paid? The shortfall
The shortfall.
from last year. How's it? It's on the books as a negative, right?
What is the question which item is it that you're referring to, Chris?
It's 425. It's just the fact that our expenses are higher than our income. And so I'm concerned by about 5 million or so. How do we deal with that? How is it getting dealt with?
That's the amount that's recovered through taxation. So like our budget has to balance to zero.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't have a shortfall. That's, if you look in the written report, like that's the amount, the difference between our revenue and our expenditures is the $5 million we raised from taxation.
Mm-hmm. So that covers it.
Yeah, so it equals to zero. The
Right.
taxation plus the revenue equals our expenditures.
So we're going into this year technically zero?
Well, that was the budget.
Okay.
That was how the budget was set, but I'm not sure exactly what question which piece of the report that you're looking at.
It was just that, so we're new, we're trying to understand what's presented in front of us. So, as a businessman, I look at what things cost and how much money I brought in type of thing. So I'm concerned if I see a negative. Now you're saying taxation covers the negative. So we are basically a neutral, hopefully a neutral budget by the end of the year.
We start our year out as a balanced budget at 0. And then as we work our way through the year, then we could have a surplus or a deficit by the end of the year. But at this point, if you're looking at the year-to-date report in the
And I know it's November 30th, so there's another month to go.
Yeah. And so right now we're looking at our revenues are at about 83% of where we expect them to be, and our expenditures are about 73%. So we're still in good shape there for right now. And then once the last of the bills come in, then we do a reconciliation for the whole year.
Okay, thanks.
Everything's good? We have that show of hands again then? Okay, thank you. Pass. Now we're gonna go down to public meetings and hearings. At the Council of North Huron, we're going to have these folks speak first before we do this, right? You've got me down for that.
Yep, so we'll invite Gil, that's what I thought, and Rachel and Heather.
So Gil, Rachel, and Heather, if you want to speak before we put this motion before council, and you can explain to us what the $15,000 for the traditional way we got here and where we're going from there.
Beautiful. Are we loaded up in here?
Wayne, did you, is it
Just a moment.
Gil,
Yes.
will you please introduce yourselves before?
Sure, yes, of course.
Just when you get going, so, because some of the councils may not know who you are.
So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Gil Garrett. I'm the Artistic Director of the Blyth Festival, Blyth Center for the Arts. I've been the Artistic Director there since 2014. I started working at the festival in 1999 as a performer. I've had a long history with that company and the community. Over the course of the last 20 years, I've been away for 2 seasons of that whole time. And my esteemed colleagues here with me today are Rachel King, our General Manager. Rachel looks after everything in the books. Grew up in Fordwich and came home from working at Exhibition Stadium to come and take over the Blyth Festival. And also our Director of Marketing and Communications, Heather Boa, who's probably no stranger to many of you, formerly with the Chamber of Commerce in Huron County, along with a number of other incredible things. So what I've come to talk to you about, I'll let Rachel worry about this. Yeah. She'll solve it. The cooperative marketing strategy. So I've done a couple of presentations now talking to the Economic Development Committee about a number of different things. The focus really has been on, and some of you may be thinking, why economic development? Artsy guy, standing up here in your little red tie. But the fact of the matter is, tourism, arts and culture is a massive part of economic development, not only across Canada, but here in our community. It's huge. And one of the things that I talked a lot to the Economic Development Committee about was the idea of circuit economies and conduit economies. And just to lay that out, what I mean to say is in a circuit economy, you have money that gets made at the barber shop that then gets spent at the grocery store, and the grocery store folks use it to buy a set of tires at the garage, and that money moves around in our community, but it doesn't necessarily inject new dollars into the community. It's money that gets moved from one side of the street to the other. And a conduit economy is money that is coming from away into our community. And for economic development people, this is a critical measure when you want to look at what the growth that is actually happening, new money that's coming from outside of our community into our community. So in 2018, this past season, the Blyth Festival welcomed 26,189 people through our doors, which is a pretty incredible achievement. The scope of what that meant ticket-wise, we had over 8,000 or almost 8,000 new ticket buyers this year from last year, which is incredible. Still not getting our fancy visuals. Okay.
We do apologize.
That's all right. That's all right. But the thing I also wanted to point to was we also spent $1.8 million. So the budget of the Blyth Festival this past year was $1.8 million. And so we are a charity. We budget to zero also. And so what you're talking about really there is that that shift of the incredible number of resources that come into the Blyth Festival that then get spent in our community. So the cooperative marketing strategy really came out of the. That's okay. That's okay. No, it's going to be great. I'm just going to bring my notes up here. Fantastic. So I'll try not to wreck the light in the process. Essentially what we came to, so this is decades ago that we established this. The Blyth Festival, together with North Huron, sets out to market North Huron to as much of the province and Canada and all over as we can. So last year, for instance, we had Americans from 23 different states who came to see shows in the Blyth Festival. We also had Canadians coming from 8 provinces. We also had one territory. We had audience members who came from Nunavut this year, incredibly enough. We had nobody from PEI again, which we're trying to address with a robust PEI marketing strategy. That one's funny, you're allowed to laugh at it. But what we've essentially done is, one of the biggest pieces is our brochure. So the Blyth Festival professionally creates an incredible brochure that we mail directly to 15,000 households who already have some kind of relationship with Blyth Festival. We also print out another 15,000 brochures that are sent all over southwestern Ontario. And so these are distributed to try to bring even more tourists to our community. And we provide also a tremendous amount of support for North Huron in terms of profile and marketing on our website. Now, I should also point out that the Regional Tourism Office, so RTO4, they have designated Blyth Festival as a provincially significant tourism asset, which is not just a label. What that actually translates into is significant provincial support. They've done things with us over the last 2 years. They've created a number of co-investments with us. For instance, they threw a bunch of money into helping us redevelop and redesign our website, which actually this past year resulted in a 248% increase in our digital sales. The online sales have been phenomenal. And we would be, as part of the cooperative marketing strategy, there's a profile for North Huron on our website. And there's continual promotion through our digital media, our social media. Also, we have a number of targeted pieces that go out to. They go out to everything from seniors' homes. We bring out a number of seniors who come out to us. We also go to, I do a number of speaking engagements to everything from Rotary clubs, Provost clubs, to all kinds of organizations. On top of that, to bus tours. We try to promote a lot of group tourist stuff. Another advantage for North Huron too is that all of the those pieces of sponsorship. So by being a sponsor, by being cooperatively marketing to tourists, to this community, one of the advantages is also Blyth Festival does a tremendous amount of work to promote that. So we go to things like we get media sponsorships like CTV. Also, this past year we had Post Media, CKNX, MyFM, Country 104.9, The Rural Voice, London Free Press, Eat Drink Magazine, Horizon Travel Magazine, Globe and Mail, all kinds of attention that we get, both in terms of sponsorship that we receive as well as attention that we get because the work we do is so extraordinary and singular. We get a lot of profile all across the country. And what this enables us to do is continually trumpet North Huron. We're able to, so in our brochure that I was speaking about, those 3 pages that we dedicate to promoting life in North Huron, those 3 pages, we don't sell advertising in our brochure. There is one other organization that has any kind of profile in our brochure, and it's Cowbell Brewery. So we're doing everything that we can to try to focus that attention on our community directly. This is not advertising that is for sale to Tim Hortons and Shoppers Drug Mart. This is specifically about trying to promote our community and have as many people come here as we possibly can. On top of that too, there's also in 2019, the wonderful things you don't get to see tonight. The Pigeon King is going to the National Arts Center. So some of you may be aware of this, some of you may not. You did get to see it when I sent it to you. So the Pigeon King, this is an amazing opportunity that's come our way. The National Arts Center in Ottawa has leapt at the opportunity to bring the Pigeon King to Ottawa to play on the national stage, which is an extraordinary achievement for the festival. It's the first time we've ever toured a show to the National Arts Center, but it also gives us, all of us, I think, in this room, an extraordinary opportunity to get in front of some decision makers in Ottawa and attempt to promote even further what it is that we do here and what we have here. The cultural asset that we have here, the economic engine that we have here. We've started working with a PR firm out of Goderich, and together we are assembling with, again, the Regional Tourism Office. We're putting together a strategy to try to get in front of as many decision makers in Ottawa as we possibly can in promotion of this show. And that will include getting in front of the rural caucus of the Liberal Party, who is attempting to kind of still figure out where they're going and what their policy focuses are going to be. I think it's a great opportunity for us as North Huron and as the Blyth Festival to stand shoulder to shoulder with some of these decision makers and say, look at the incredible example of what has happened in Blyth, Ontario. I mean, you can't point to an example like that all over the place. So to be able to take the Pigeon King there and do this, I think is an incredible piece. On top of that too, as I also shared with you, one of the other things that is such a great opportunity as part of the cooperative marketing strategy is Municipal Night. Now, many of the people in this room have been to Municipal Night before. It's an amazing opportunity for North Huron to invite folks to come and see a show in our beautiful theater and to be able to say, look at what happens here in this community. Look at what actually goes on here. And it's a great opportunity to invite, for instance, not only parallel councils and parallel staff in other municipalities. Last year, I think we had people from 30 different municipalities who were here to be at Municipal Night. So there's an amazing opportunity to network. There's also a great opportunity to invite some decision makers, again, to have people from the Trillium Foundation be invited to come and be there at that Municipal Night. Have people from the Ministry of Infrastructure, have people from Canadian Heritage, to invite them to come and be a part of that night, and we can vet them and show them how far above our weight class we punch in this community. I think it's a great opportunity, and Blyth Festival can help to tailor that invitation list too, and make sure that we get the people we want to see. On top of that too, I wanted to point out, there's a slide here in front of me with some really special numbers to me this year. So I just want to take a moment to point out that in our 2018 season, so we had 26,000 people through the door, but 2,293 tickets were sold to people who live in North Huron. And I think that's a really extraordinary feat. When you're talking about a population in this community of about 4,884, right? That you actually have half of that population is walking through the door with a ticket in their hand to be a part of what is going on in that theater. That's a really incredible thing. Roy Thompson Hall doesn't do that in Toronto. You don't have half of Toronto walk through the doors of Roy Thompson Hall to hear their stories, to see images of life as it's lived in Toronto on the stage of Roy Thompson Hall. You know, this is an incredible thing that the Blyth Festival has achieved and that we've achieved together. And I think the other half of that, which is so important for this community to consider, especially coming back to what I talked about conduit economies, is that means also that of those 26,000 people, the other 92% of that number came from away. We had people who were coming from hours away. Some of them, as I said, from the States, but also people who are coming, the bulk of our audience is coming from at least an hour away. And they are coming here and spending their money here in our community and attending the shows, but also going to our restaurants, buying gasoline in this community. They're also engaging with this community all the time. And I think that that's a really extraordinary thing. We also have an incredible donor base locally. So $11,000 in donations came into the Blyth Festival last year from people who live in North Huron. And that's compared to $175,000 worth of donations that came from outside. Similarly, we had corporate sponsorships made up 30% of our total corporate sponsorships came from corporations in this community. They see value in what the Blyth Festival is, and if they can put their brand alongside what the Blyth Festival is, for them it has real currency. And that goes, I mean, not only for corporations here in this community, but also abroad. And then I also wanted to point out too, in terms of economic development and what we achieve with Blyth Festival, we receive significant funds from the Canada Council for the Arts and from the Ontario Arts Council. And these funds, if you think about the way in which, how hard it can be to get federal support or to get provincial support for initiatives when we're trying to get things off the ground. The fact that actually Blyth Festival, you know, right there on Queen Street, actually brings in significant funds from the Canada Council, from the Ontario Arts Council, that is additional subsidy and money that is coming in to help to bolster and build a cultural entity here in our community. And I think that that's a really extraordinary achievement. And again, you know, we continue to focus all of that on promoting this place. So I'm really sorry that you were robbed from the full scale size. I can apologize to you to Reeve Bailey. You didn't have to turn your neck to look at the screen behind you either.
Nice little screen.
But the cooperative marketing strategy, I think, is really an incredible opportunity for North Huron to leverage what the Blyth Festival does every day with professional people whose job it is full-time to be marketing and promoting this place. And I think it gives an opportunity to align the innovations that we are making as a community with the innovations that are made on that stage. So I think it's a great opportunity for all of us. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Gil. I just had technical glitches here.
Oh, did you?
I have everything you talked about up and I can't get it down. You guys couldn't get it up. So while I work on that, there is a motion.
To what?
Yes. Go ahead.
So just for the benefit of council, again, going back to, with respect to economic development. So just, and we've talked about this previously in terms of our model change with respect to economic development, whereby we've gone to an economic development committee model. And as Gil indicated, he attended and presented to the economic development committee. And they discussed it in terms of the request being received from the Blyth Festival. For council's benefit, in years past, with respect to marketing and promotion, it's a partnership arrangement that we have with the Blyth Festival. There's about 21,000 that we allocate to that. Of that 21,000 or so, 15,000 has gone to the festival to assist with marketing or promoting the municipality. So I think just in terms of for council to have that information. The other piece to it, I think, is in terms of the festival basically initiates their marketing promotion and that either brochures and all that sort of stuff in January of the new year. What's happened historically is that, council has received the presentation from the Blyth Festival and then considers it as part of the 2019 budget process. That's typically what has happened. But I know that in terms of with the Blyth Festival, that creates not knowing in terms of whether the budget's going to be approved or not with that in it. So there's a bit of anxiety perhaps.
Because
with the
our
festival.
budget is approved in October, so.
Yeah.
So just from, so we've looked at the economic development budget for 2018 and it is showing a surplus. At this point, it's projected to show a surplus. So one of the discussions at the Economic Development Committee was in terms of council could pass a motion authorizing for, if council so wishes, to allocate $15,000 out of the 2018 economic development budget in terms of partnership with the Blyth Festival. And then in your 2019 budget, you could consider whatever it is that you wish to consider, put that into your 2019 budget that would then be available in 2019 to continue the partnership in 2020, for example. So essentially the motion that you have before you then reads as follows, and it's for council's consideration. That the Council of Township in North Huron hereby allocates $15,000 to the Blyth Festival out of the 2018 economic development budget. And further, that the Council of Township in North Huron hereby allocates a further $15,000 to the 2019 budget. So that's the motion that is before council, and that is a motion that has come forward from your Economic Development Committee.
Do I have somebody to make that motion? Kevin Faulkner. Do I have a second? Chris Palmer. Open floor for discussion. Go ahead, Kevin.
Mr. To fellow councilors, I know that the money allocated going to the theater in the budget helps them out greatly. I just want to say how thankful I am that the North Huron is getting the opportunity for one of our plays from here going in front of some bigger players there. Anything that could come out of that would only be good as far as getting the an eye in culture. It puts it in their wheelhouse, and things can expand from there. It's getting on their radar, and I commend the theater for taking on that endeavor. It's quite a fun thing. And I think all those pigeons will come home to roost. And my second point was also we're not hearing anything about the economic influx that all of our service groups get mostly in the Blyth ward, the churches, the support volunteer groups. That some of them are their major fundraising events are around the theater, and I can tell you every dollar that comes from down that conduit is worth $2 of town money, because it's literally free money coming in to support it. It goes on to helping people in need. It goes on to helping our recreations, our sports, our gardens. It is a much bigger containment than some people think that of how much economic spinoff there is. And I just wanted to kind of touch along those ones there to know how important something like this is. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I'm gonna go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, my only comment is the one thing about the Blyth Festival that I continually tell many people who talk to me about the Blyth Festival, and the Blyth Festival is very good at providing this, is that these stories and things are about our community. They're not talking about something that's happened in Toronto or in Windsor or whatever. They're talking about things that have happened in Huron County. So, to have that type of stuff being projected on the main stage of the National Arts Council, and knowing that we can talk about that it's from Huron County and this area, that's a big ticket. That's a big ticket to Huron County. It's a big ticket to North Huron. It's a big ticket to, all of the surrounding communities, not just necessarily North Huron, but like all of us. It doesn't necessarily have a boundary of municipally boundary. Like we have that, and if we can get involved in that discussion about being shoulder to shoulder and having those discussions with people in Ottawa, we got to be able to take advantage of that. And I think, you don't get many opportunities like this in this day and age to be in that area. So, I congratulate, slur of the tongue there. I congratulate the Blyth Festival, but I also understand that, we as the municipality have had a significant impact in doing that because we have done something like this ever since I've been on council and probably before that. So I think we continue to have that investment, and I think we support the Blyth Festival no more than the Blyth Festival supports us. I think it is truly a partnership arrangement.
Any other comments or questions? I just want to follow up, Gil, with my journeys take me near and far, and when I mentioned I'm from North Huron, that's where the Blyth Festival is one of the very first things people ask me. I've been to the Blyth Festival. You guys are truly to be commended for what you do and we can never repay you except for the small donations. So with that said, I'm going to ask to call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And welcome to council.
Laura, do you think without the screen you'll be okay, or are you going to be able to get on the screen?
Mine's up there.
Yours is up there?
Yeah.
Okay. You're next on deck.
Tested it beforehand.
Just a second, Laura.
No, that's fine. So just for the benefit of council, Gil, your presentation was provided to all of council.
Excellent. Yeah.
So I don't know if you were able to, if you had a look at that. I know Trevor, deputy, was following, so yeah, okay, great. Sorry.
Do you want me to read this first or that one? Go first? Okay, go ahead, Laura.
Okay, thank you, Ruth, and good evening, council. I'm here tonight to discuss and present to you the site plan agreement for 244-1716 Ontario Inc. So this is a site plan. It's the first site plan of a two-stage site plan process, and the agreement was presented to the developer. The developer for this property intends to construct a retaining wall at the edge of the highway commercial zone portion of the property, install storm sewers, and complete the placing of a fill. The property in question is on the northwest corner of County Roads 4 and 86, Josephine and Amberley Road, and you can see it outlined in the yellow there. So the legal description of the property is Block B, Registered Plan 410 in Wingham in the Township of North Huron. So the subject lands are zoned highway commercial and natural environment in the North Huron, designated highway commercial and natural environment in the North Huron official plan, and are zoned highway commercial special zone, so C3-1, and floodway, FW, in the North Huron zoning bylaw. The site-specific highway commercial zoning of the property recognizes that the subject property is within the Wingham Special Policy Area. This identified special policy area has specific policies to satisfy for any development and is located within the identified floodplain. The policies are to permit development in a manner that has recognized the environmental issues of the area and is designed to minimize the risk, the level of risk to life and property damage. Hence, the flood elevation for the fill construction and retaining wall for protection of the site and the river. In attendance tonight is also Steve Jackson from the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, as he has been well involved with the review of the proposed site plan for the fill, construction of the retaining wall, and the storm sewers. So he also knows more of the technical aspects of the proposed construction than I do. So the two-stage site plan process is that tonight here in the site plan agreement before you, as mentioned, is specifically focusing on the construction of the site to bring it up to road level and the infrastructure required to do that. There will be a second site plan that will address the site layout and matters for the commercial development. So that would address parking, landscaping, lighting, stormwater management, and all of those issues that would actually make up the commercial development itself. This site plan agreement addresses that the fill will bring it up to the road level and satisfy the flooding concerns. So this is one of the technical drawings that was submitted, and this would show the fill plan for the proposed development. There. And I do also have one of this is the proposed storm sewer plan as well as the storm sewer profile for the technical drawings that were submitted. So the site plan agreement would have North Huron enter into the agreement with 244-1716 Ontario Inc. and have that plus the accompanying technical drawings and supporting documentation registered on title, which would then be replaced by the second site plan that they submit, detailing their commercial development and the elements that make it up. So I'm recommending that North Huron Council approve the proposed development for this stage of this site plan and pass the bylaw agreeing to enter into the agreement with the developer.
Thank you. So what we have is the Council of Township of North Huron received a report from Laura Simpson, Huron County Planner, and further that the Council of Township of North Huron approved the proposed development, and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron passed the necessary bylaws to enter into a site plan agreement with 244-1716 Ontario Inc. for the development of the subject lands. Do I have a mover? Trevor Sight moves. Do I have a seconder? So we can have some discussion, okay? Then Chris Palmer seconds. Opening the floor for questions or comments. Go ahead, Chris.
Through Reeve, Laura, it is perceived by some public as a potential flooding problem. Creator. I've heard that before. So, it's probably not, but it's the word perceived overrides. Are we exposed to any liabilities if there's flooding up or downstream? Because there's going to be, ooh, this is what you caused this, so.
So I can't speak to the liability that North Huron has, just that it's going through the same site plan process any commercial development would go through, and that it is in part of the special policy area. So other properties that have already been developed, for example, would be the Tim Hortons and the Value Mart are also in the same special policy area. So they had the same policies applied to them when they were developed.
Okay.
Through Reeve, has there been any consideration or any studies done as to the additional needs for traffic calming? I know right now just how much congestion there is just turning into the getting in and out of Tim Hortons and the grocery store on one side, and it looks from your peer the driveway is going directly across the street from this one, making it a T intersection. If additional calming measures are required, it would be council that would, I think, would have to put up a street light or some, or traffic light, or it would be our responsibility. I just wonder if there's been any study done. I know they also have an easement or an access off of the 86 as well. Is there any road widening required here, or any changes to the surface that is there now?
Through you, Reeve, the developer has worked with Mike Hauser and Aaron Khaled from the county, since both roads would require frontage, both accesses would require frontage on the county roads. So they've been working with them and did produce a traffic report for them. And the location of the entrances have been discussed with them and in conjunction with Maitland Valley, considering the one at 86 is close to the river. And that took into account.
It was close to the existing traffic light that's there. It would affect traffic if it was backed up from somebody trying to turn left and turn right into the and get out. I know it's tough now to get out there on a good day. Whether that would require any. I'm just thinking of what future costs if it was us that had to put in street lights or crosswalks or crossing system for pedestrians to get out, because I know on that side of the road, there's no sidewalk. All foot traffic would have to come across that road. So that would have to have some kind of traffic containing or calming or stopping. Just that would, if that's been addressed as far as what we might have to have for future expenses at this new intersection. Just one.
I'm wondering though, as kind of a follow-up to, Councillor Faulkner's questions, is that those might come up during the site plan about the actual site. So currently right now, this site plan is just for stormwater management and making it fill up to grade. When it comes into the conversation about what building, or if a building, whatever building is gonna be, where it's gonna be located on the site, how it's going to be impacted by traffic and all that stuff, that might be some questions, and these are good points that Councillor Faulkner is making. So I think we need to make sure we document some of these questions, that when that site plan comes here, that we somehow make sure that those have been addressed and at least commented on, so that we already have that information pre-making the determination whether the site plan needs to be approved or not. So I think those are good questions. I just don't know if this is the time, because there is going to be another site plan that comes back to tell us exactly where the layout is, and maybe that's when those studies and that stuff will have to come back to that from there. I did have one question about the actual site plan, the filling and that. Is it a requirement under the site plan that testing of the fill in order for stability, or to ensure that it is of a quality that when a building is put up there, that we're not going to see significant ups and heavals and whatever? Obviously, I'm sure that the developer would want that, but is that something that we as a municipality take into consideration about when a site plan like this is done?
And through you, Reeve, yes, they did submit a grading, erosion, and siltation plan, as well as a geotechnical report from their engineer that was reviewed also by North Huron's engineer as well.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Laura, if I could just follow up on what Kevin said. So there has not been traffic flow studies done because of the congestion that will be at that corner.
There was previously a traffic study completed.
Okay, and when you say previously, that's in the last few years?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we have traffic flows that we don't want to have the same concerns that we're running into in the Blyth 25 intersection, where it's, from personal experience, it can be a little deadly getting around that corner. So we're fine with the traffic flows. Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions or comments, I will call the vote. The vote passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to number 6, to reports. We're going to start with the clerk's department.
Thanks, Reeve. So this is a report for council's information regarding cannabis legalization and retailing. So the Ontario government passed legislation back in October of this year that privatized the cannabis retail model. And they enacted what is referred to as a Cannabis License Act. And it sets that the Alcohol Gaming Commission of Ontario as a regulator of cannabis retail outlets, and the Ontario Cannabis Retail Corporation as exclusive wholesaler and online retailer of cannabis in Ontario. And the first retail stores are set to open on April 1st of 2019. The Act establishes that municipalities have a one-time opportunity to refuse to allow private cannabis retail stores to operate within their municipality or opt out. The deadline for opting out is January 22nd of 2019. If a municipality opts out of allowing retail stores, the AGCO will not issue licenses for cannabis retail stores in the municipality. Opting out would be done through a resolution of council, and we would send that to the AGCO. Municipalities, again, have the opportunity to opt out. And if you, opt out by passing, if you opt out and then want to opt in, you would pass an additional resolution to opt back in. Municipalities are automatically opted in unless council passes a motion to opt themselves out. A municipality that has been automatically opted in will not be able to refuse to allow retail stores in the future. Okay, so that's important for council to know. So just, there's a report there that contains a fair amount of information. Staff will be bringing a report back in the new year with more information with respect to this. Purpose of this report is to make you aware that we will be looking or needing to make a decision by January 22nd of 2019 if council so wishes to opt out. And if you don't pass a resolution to opt out, you're automatically opted in terms of allowing retail cannabis stores.
So the resolution is that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive the report of cannabis legalization and retail from the Huron County for information. Mover? Kevin Faulkner, do I have a seconder? Anita? Questions or concerns? At this time, I really think since it's going to come back, I don't really think there's much reason to talk about it now. If you want to, we can. Would you like to say something? Would you like to talk?
Agree.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, personally, I've been negative to this. I thought we've got enough issues with alcohol and now there's this. And it's going to be, and I understand if we opted out, then whoever wants pot can go, you know, north, south, east, or west and get it. So a bit of a prohibition would be back in those days. So it's hard, you know, you've got your own personal feelings about the issue. And, you know, of course you go with council's decision. But I don't know, I just wanted to say that. I'm concerned about some of the guidelines for, you know, 150 meters from school, excuse me, that's not far. Or from rec centers, you know, how many outlets would be down Main Street, and then they fluff it up by saying, yeah, but it'll rehabilitate empty stores. You know, you'll get people in there. Oh, I'm going to open up a pot store. You know, get a license and do it, and then all of a sudden we got one, and oh, there's taxes are there, so we make something from it. You know, so there's this two-edged sword.
Yeah.
We can talk about it later,
Yeah.
but that's just how I feel right now.
And it's understandable. Anybody else like to make a comment? We'll be coming back. Go ahead, Paul.
I'm just curious, would you be able to get, since OPP are coming in to take over, could you get some information back what they're thinking of that would be to a retirement area?
Very good idea. Get their
Just-
input. Right.
It sounds really good there, they're offering you this, offering you that, but
Yep.
there's cost to it, nothing's free.
Reeve, I think the OPP pretty near has to follow upper tier. So whatever Ontario agrees with, they have to follow.
But are we kind of comfortable for us to know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Call the vote. Yeah. Trevor? I think I did call the vote. Just need a show of hands. Do I not? Yeah, just a show of hands, please. Okay, passes. Thank you. So again, that was just for information purposes. Appointment of the Court of Revision. Would you like to touch on that? Dean, go ahead.
Thanks. So the Ontario Drainage Act, it requires municipalities to establish a court of revision. The quarter revision of the Draining Act, under the Drainage Act, has one power, and that's to look at reallocating funds when dealing with the drainage assessment schedule. In the past, North Huron has appointed council members to the quarter revisions by resolution, and that's been done at the time that we receive an appeal. The quarter revision has courts of revision generally consist of 3 or 5 members. In the past, North Huron, we've appointed 3 members plus 1 alternate. It's recommended that council appoint members to a quarter revision, including alternates for the whole term of council. And essentially, in terms of appointing members to the quarter revision, it would be 3 members of council is what's being recommended, plus 1 alternate. And we do have, if council so wishes, we do have a bylaw on the council agenda that on the basis you decide that you wish to appoint 3 plus an alternate, and council passes a bylaw, and we will insert those individuals into that bylaw.
So I'm going to read this, and then we're going to get a motion, and then we're going to have a conversation about who would like to be on it. But the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive the report from the CAO clerk regarding the appointment for the Court of Revision for information purposes. And further, that the council proceed to adopt bylaw 109-2018, appointing 3 members of council and 1 alternate to the Court of Revision. And further, that the council deem bylaw 109-2018 being a bylaw to establish a Court of Revision to be administrative and approval and exceptions to section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow bylaw number 109-2018 to pass at the December 17th, 2018 council meeting. Do I have a mover? Kevin Faulkner, do I have a seconder? Okay. Chris Palmer. So I'm going to kind of open the floor up. My understanding on this is we would like 3 volunteers to step forward now for this.
Mr.
Yes.
I'd just like to, I think a way to be broad about it, I think the 3 members should be split up between the 3 municipalities.
Wards?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just have a member from each ward at least.
Mm-hmm.
That way you cover all areas.
Very good idea. From the Blyth ward, can I have a name put forward? Oh, go ahead, did you want to speak? Yeah.
Mr. Reed? I think a majority of any of these little developments, drainage is going to be through our East Walnash. So, like, I volunteer for that. I need to make more friends.
You haven't done this before.
Oh, no, I've heard about it, but I feel responsibility towards it, so.
Okay. And Anita, so there's,
Yes, I volunteer too for
Yeah.
this committee because I think it's very important.
Yeah.
It's one, it's
so now we have 2 volunteering, but we were going to accept 1 from each.
Well, that was a suggestion.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to Kevin and say, are you okay with that, on the understanding that it will actually be a lot to do with East Wawanosh, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I just was making a comment,
Okay.
and since it was 3 a minimum of 3, that there's nothing to say that in the future there won't be something come up in anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So we do have the 2 volunteers from East Wawanosh. Do we have a third? Trevor Sipes? Is there anybody else that would like to put their name forward for the alternative? Paul, you got the job. In that case, I call the vote, please. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is 6.1.3, the procedural bylaw amendment. And this one here, we'll just read it out and we'll have a motion and go with it. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the CAO clerk dated December 17th, 2018 regarding the procedural bylaw amendments for information purposes. And further, that the council proceed on to adopt bylaw 208-2018, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 116-2017 to reflect the following changes to the Township of North Huron. Section 3.5A, to move the start of the regular council meeting to 6 p.m. and end at 10 p.m. unless there's a special motion of council to extend the meeting. Section 15.1 and 17.13, to amend the order of business on the regular council meeting agenda to include an opportunity for members of the public to speak on an item of business on the agenda, 2 minutes per person. Section 17.14, to make the North Huron petition policy adopted November 21st, 2016, Schedule C of the procedural bylaw. Do I have a mover? And yep. Hitterman moves, seconder. Paul. Effort seconds. Conversation or questions? Floor is open. This again is something we discussed previously and come to agreements with, so it does not surprise me there's no hands. So I'm going to call the vote. Yep.
Just a point, with this change, you have to make sure it's advertised well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll call the vote then. Vote carries. 6.1.4, council remuneration. That the council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive the CEO clerk's report dated December 17, 2018 regarding the elimination of the 1/3 tax exemption for council for information purposes. And further, that the council selects one of the two options. Option 1, the council remuneration becomes fully taxable with no adjustment to the current honorarium or per diem rate. Option 2, staff will direct to repair the amendment to the council remuneration bylaw to reflect option 2, which increases the council remuneration to provide the same net after-tax remuneration effective January 1st, 2019. Do I have a mover? Just one thing I should point out, if you move and second it, and the conversation goes where you're really not in favor of, you just simply don't pass it. Don't put your hand up to pass it, and it'll come back another day. Or you can table it. If you don't have enough information, you can table it, and that gives staff time to bring more information back to talk about it another day. So every time we have a motion on the floor, it does not mean it has to be passed. It's simply you have the alternative directions you can go, okay? Having said that, conversations or questions? Paul?
I was disappointed that that even came up at our first meeting just after we're inaugurated. I feel we knew what we're doing when we're taking on our job. Let's go ahead and do it. Go with number 1. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah.
I take a different approach to it. I think option 2 at a minimum. The remuneration hasn't been revisited, I believe, since 2006. The information that was provided from all the other communities on that last report was done in, I believe, 2014. So
It's not before that yet. It maybe even before that.
Or even before that. So it's as previous as our last look at the remunerations. I've noticed through some social media ones that there are other townships around, or other councils around us, including even here in County Council, is revisiting that, or at least excuse me, not here in County Council. Let me correct that. The Goderich Mayor is revisiting this thing as well. So even the information that we were given to begin with was quite outdated as far as current cost of living does. So I think in order to stay without going backwards, getting less than what was per diem in 2006, option 1 puts us further behind than 2006. I think just as a minimum, just to stay even with what was legislated or what was appointed in 2006, just to stay there, it has to be option 2, and I would like us to consider the information, the fresh information, and not going back on information that is 8 years old for us to make a decision.
Just for clarification, this is not a wage increase. This is the federal government taking away tax exemption. So all we're doing is keeping the price for the ratepayers in North Huron at the same level. It's not, this is not a, we'll talk about enumeration that another day as Paul has discussed. That's a conversation down the road, Paul. This is simply to keep us at the level we are. And it reflects back to, because it's a taxation situation, some of us could end up with coming for nothing because we're in a high tax bracket, and now we just lost some more exemptions. So that's what this one's about. This is not about, the public has to be aware. This is simply, we got downloaded with this again, and we're just holding the line. We are not asking for a pay increase. Okay? Further questions or comments? So we have 2 options on the table. I guess I would call for option 1 and see a vote of hands of how many would like number 1, which is 2. Okay. Option number 2, a show of hands. 2. Trevor? Not voting?
So I'm a little, sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a little, generally, in order to do that, my normal process or normal procedure would be a motion on the floor, picking one of the 2, and then the vote would go on that motion. If that motion is then defeated, another motion would come about. Conversation about whether one wants one and one wants the other, to me, there has been no motion put.
I understand what you're saying.
I'm not gonna vote on a motion I haven't even heard.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. So we need to rescind the motion. Who put the motion forward?
There has been no motion.
Oh, I thought we had a motion, because I usually ask for the motions before I talk. So Trevor, with your experience, how would you like to handle this? Guide us through this one, my friend.
So what I would suggest is that I will make the motion to receive the report that's dated, and further that council select option number 2 in order to proceed with that motion. So I will make that motion.
Do I have a seconder? Yeah. Further comments? I call the vote. All in favor? 2, 3, I'll break the tie. Because it'll be a 3-3 tie, right? So I'll break the tie and it passes. Right? Okay. And I do apologize for that misstep, and I do thank you for your help, Trevor. Okay, 6.1.5, appointing the committees. Everybody got a copy of the different committees you've been appointed to. Again, I'm going to call this one for that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive the report from the CEO Clerk on date December 17th, 2018 regarding the council, committees, and boards for information purposes. And further, the council proceed to adopt bylaw number 111-2018 regarding the appointment of committees and boards for the Township of North Huron for the 2018-2022 term of council. So Dwayne, would you mind just explaining or talking to that a bit about how that come around, or do you want to just?
Sure.
Okay.
So at the previous council meeting, there was a discussion, as you recall, in terms of your committees and boards. And we went through a number of committees and boards, and there was discussion in terms of, the ones we're going to keep and the ones we're not going to keep. And there was also a call out in terms of any new committees and boards that we want to establish. So in response to the feedback that we received at the last council meeting, we put together an expression sheet, and we asked members of council to complete the expression sheet and to submit it to us. So we had some indication as far as who was interested in what committee and board. There were some committees and boards where we got more expression than there were spaces, I guess, on those committees and boards. And then we had some where there was no expression of interest at all. So in consultation with the REEV has put forward recommendations for committees and boards. And I would suggest that you would like this for discussion purposes, or I'm not sure how you want to proceed with that. But just for the benefit of the public, the recommendations perhaps are as follows. For the North Huron Police Services Board, 2 members. And the recommendations here are Councillor McBurney and Deputy Reeve Sype. Property Standards Committee, the recommendation is all of council. Blyth Hollow Landfill Site Board, 2 members. Councillor Faulkner and Councillor McBurney. Wingham Landfill Site Board, 3 members are required. We have Councillor Heffler, Councillor Palmer, and Deputy Reeve Sype. Energy Environment Committee, 1, and we have Councillor Palmer there. Economic Development Committee, we addressed this at our last meeting. We have Reed Bailey and Councillor Faulkner. Mainland Valley Conservation Authority, 1, Councillor Van Hootersum. The Conservation Authority appointment, just for information, Jim Campbell is currently our representative until February the 19th of 2019. So this appointment would become effective after that date. Coalition for Hearing Injury Prevention, 2, we have Councillor McBurney and Councillor Van Hootersum. Physician Recruitment Committee, 1, Councillor Van Hootersum. Wingham Musical Muskrat Festival, 1. The member understanding indicates that there is no need for an appointment, but certainly if there's an individual or member of council who wish to participate or attend, we could certainly put that forward. The Blyth Business Improvement Association, 1 representative, Councillor Faulkner, is recommended. The Wingham Business Improvement Association, 1 is recommended, 1 is required, Deputy Reeve Sype. Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story, 1 individual, Councillor Heffer. Wingham Town Hall Theatre Committee, 1, Councillor Heffer. And North Huron Columbus Centre Advisory Committee, 1 member of council, and the recommendation is Councillor Palmer. So those are recommendations for council's consideration, I would suggest, unless the REEV.
So what we did was we gave everybody 3. Just happened to work out, everybody got 3 and good old Bernie got 1. And I based it on hearing your speeches when you were getting elected and the conversations I had with you folks. This is not written in stone. So if we could just make a motion to bring it as information and talk about it another time if you want. Although I believe some of these committees are going to need people on them, or we can vote this. So I think before I ask for any motions at all, because of the way this took place, I think we should hear from the councillors themselves on the committees they were put on and how they feel. Because I could have put you guys on a committee that you have no interest at all. I don't know. Okay. So I'm not sure if it's a proper way to do it. I'm too new in my term, but I would like to open the floor up to that conversation. And would that be the right way to do it, Dwayne? Okay. So I would like to do that. So if anybody would like to start speaking and voice interest in something else or not in something or make different arrangements, please speak up.
I speak. I like the committees that you put me in or I volunteered for. I am the Mainland Valley Conservation Authority is dear to my heart. I explained it already in my speech with the Nature Center, Walrus Nature Center. I do volunteer work at the hospital. The hospital is a very important asset in our community, so I like that. And the hearing injury prevention is really important for the whole community. I hope they pay a little bit more attention to farm accidents, and I like what I'm
Thank you
going
very
to.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Mr. Reeve, I'm honored to be on any of the ones that you put me on. The only one I would bring into discussion was the economic development and the Blyth VIA. We're meeting on the same day.
Yeah.
Is that
Through you, Reeve. That particular meeting, typically the Economic Development Committee usually meets Thursday mornings. Because of scheduling conflicts with the other committee members, it got moved to a Wednesday. Generally speaking, it's Thursday.
Okay, that's what's my own concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only comment I did want to make is, so I had a conversation with the Dwayne Sprague, our representative for the Municipal Policing Bureau, regards to the North Huron Police Services Board.
Yes.
So I did make a comment before where when or if disbandment happens with the Wingham Police Service, that the North Huron Police Services Board would still maintain, and that is correct. It would still maintain. It would still only govern the contract with the OPP within the limits of Wingham. So it would not have anything to do with Blyth or East Wallinosh coverage. So I just wanted to make sure and clear that up, because I think I might have said that it might involve the whole municipality, but under section 5.1, under which East Wallinosh and Blyth have OPP coverage under, it doesn't require. They could have a board, but they choose not to at this point. So the part is that this board, the North Huron Police Services Board, would change its model on there'd be less involvement from a budgeting perspective, but ultimately the composition would stay the same. It wouldn't be the chief of police. It would be the detachment commander of the OPP that would sit on it. It is up to the board to decide what their meeting schedule is going to be like, all that stuff. So that will happen after, but I thought I would just make everybody aware, especially Councillor McBurney, the fact that if he expressed interest, because I made a comment of that it would have representation. Now, it doesn't matter. It can be anybody that represents. It's just going to be dealing with the contract in the Wingham ward. But I just want to make sure it was clear for everybody and you, Councillor McBurney, because again, of what I might have said and maybe misled the council on what I had interpreted at the time.
I just want to follow up with that for record. With the activity in Blyth, we may be looking at different policing in it. I think it's very important that we have somebody from the Blyth board on it so that the continuity is there. So when somebody in Blyth asks a question, Mr. McBurney can say, well, actually this and this and this, rather than just have two people from Wingham. And then of course, East Wallinosh, you're right in the middle, I know, but we can now have that conversation. In the past, there has been East Wallinosh and I believe Blyth people too that have been on the committee. So that's kind of where I was going with that. This gives us that continuity, and then if something happens, you can say, well, yeah, well, I was sitting at the table and this is why it happened. And it has no effect on us at this end. Okay?
Yep.
Is it okay with you?
Yep, I'm interested in that. One question, there's a meeting tomorrow?
No, Thursday.
Thursday, okay.
December the 18th. It's been rescheduled to the 18th because we had to. The intention of it was we need to make sure that we had appointees, and as you would know through you, Reeve, is that there is a community representative appointment. So the intention of that, if that appointment happens tonight, that individual could get the package, the agenda, and make sure that they're prepared for the meeting on Thursday. So that was directly set up that way just because of the appointments that need to happen.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Not hearing. Go ahead.
Reeve Bailey. Yes, I'm quite content and excited. Lost it. Excited about the different committees. Some I'm going to learn about, and that'll be good. The landfill, it's in our area, and we all use it, and be part of that is good. The Energy and Environment Committee, I'm not sure to what extent that committee
I honestly don't.
is, but okay, it's interesting, and then Columbus Center. I want to make sure that, it's a great place. A lot of us have been there and use it. And I just want to make sure that there's a good, regarding the budget, that, we get our, I shouldn't put it this way, but we get our share and it's fair. So that's good for me. And then the property standards, I'm glad we're all involved in that. Very, very important. I would like, unless I missed it, when all of the meetings are for these committees, scheduled.
You will get notification, yeah, you will be getting notification.
Okay.
That's a big concern of mine on 2 levels right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, I'm with Alice Monroe. I only take that on if my daughter can help me.
Absolutely. You volunteer for us.
Okay, no problem. Thanks.
Thank you. Sounds like everybody's pretty happy, so would somebody like to put a motion forward to accept the, guess that would be the bylaw 111. How would we put that?
So you pass this motion and then adopt the bylaw later on.
Okay, so Trevor,
I will move the motion as it's read in the report.
okay, thank you. Seconder, okay, Rick McBurney. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, building department. Oh, sorry. 6.5. Oh, I've got to go way back.
6.6.
That one? Yes.
Okay. Okay, vacancy of the Wingham Police, that the council of the township of North Huron hereby received a report from CEO Clerk dated December 17, 2018 regarding appointment for the community representative for the North Huron Police Services Board vacancy. Information, this is for information purposes. And further, the council invite the applicants to the position to address council to speak to their qualifications. And further, that the council discuss the merits of the applications in closed session. We have a situation where there's only one here. Steve's here tonight. The other applicant isn't here to give his side of the story. I think we should do, in all fairness, is hear Steve Hill tonight. And we'll have to wait for the next council meeting to hear the other person that would like to, that sent his regrets because he couldn't be here tonight. In all fairness, 2 people did put their names forward. So.
I'm okay waiting until the next meeting.
That's fine. So the another possibility if council so wished is, so you'll hear from Mr. Hill tonight. There is another applicant who has expressed an interest as well. Whether or not council wishes for the reeve and perhaps the deputy reeve to meet with that individual. Or between now and the next council meeting, or whether you would like that person to come and address all of council. I'll leave that with council to what, in terms of how you want to proceed or what you'd like to do.
I'm just going to speak to one thing. I did hear Stephen, you spoke up and said you didn't mind waiting for 2 weeks.
That seems a little more fair for.
Okay.
Okay.
So then we'll just take this one off the table for tonight. Yep. Yeah. So we're just going to defer this one for 2 weeks. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Trevor.
Bill, I will make the motion to defer this report and the community vacancy until for 2 weeks.
Thank you. Seconder? Paul Heffer? All in favor? Thank you. It passed. 6.1.7, that the council of the township of North Huron hereby receive the report from the CAO clerk dated December 17, 2018 regarding the appointment of the committee of adjustment for information purposes. And further, that the council proceed to adopt bylaw 110-2018, appointing all members of council as the township of North Huron committee of adjustments. Do I have a mover? Anita moves it. Do I have a second? Rick McBurney seconds. Comments or questions from the council? Seeing none, I call the vote. Passed. Finance Department, 6.2.1. And this one is that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby appoint the following as signing authorities for the banking and financial purposes of the corporation. Reeve Bernie Bailey, Deputy Reeve Trevor Sipes, Treasurer Donna White, Deputy Treasurer Julie Wheeler. And further that any one of the Reeve or Deputy Reeve together with any of the other Treasurer or Deputy Reeve may sign. Do I have a mover? Rick McBurney moves. Kevin Faulkner seconds. Questions or comments? Seeing none, show of hands. Passes. 6.3 is Recreation and Community Services. 6.3.1, Renewal of the Nights. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive the report from the Director of Recreation and Community Services dating December 17, 2018, regarding a 6-month extension of the operation agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron, the Township, and the Knights and the Wingham Knights of Columbus for the use of the Columbus Center located at the North Huron Rec Complex. Do I have a mover? Actually, first would be Vicki. Would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just highlight the report and give a little bit of background. So in 2000, an agreement was made between the Township of North Huron and the Wingham Knights of Columbus regarding their pledge/contribution towards the overall construction of the North Huron West Cass Community Complex. Their annual contribution for utility costs, the Knights of Columbus Center, and their contribution toward the overall operating deficit of the entire facility. In the original agreement, the Knights had pledged to contribute $550,000 toward the construction of the overall recreation complex, which was bridge financed by the municipality. They also agreed to contribute $10,000 annually to cover the utility costs of the hall, the amount of which was subject to review over each term due to rising utility costs. They also agreed to contribute an additional 5% annually towards the operating deficit of the overall complex, up to a maximum of $10,000. In return, the Knights were given exclusive use of the facility. Since the original agreement was signed in 2000, it has come up for renewal on several occasions. Each time, terms and conditions have been renegotiated, and the term of each agreement has been altered. Sometimes the term of the agreement's been for 5 years, 10 years, depending on the situation. The terms of the current agreement is that the Knights of Columbus contribute $12,500 annually towards their $550,000 pledge. They are required to contribute a flat rate of $17,000 toward the utility costs annually, and are still required to contribute $5,000 of the annual operating deficit of the complex, up to a maximum of $10,000. The current agreement expires on December 31st of this year. Earlier this month, staff approached the Knights of Columbus about the renewal of the existing agreement. The Knights have expressed interest in renewing it. However, due to the timeline and busy holiday season, because this is the busiest time of year for them to do their fundraising and things, they didn't have a meeting scheduled so that they could discuss it. So staff are recommending that we grant a 6-month extension to allow both parties time to meet and renegotiate the terms.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to call for somebody to put a motion forward for that. That motion?
I'll move it.
Trevor Sipe moves it. Seconder? Kevin or Chris Palmer seconds. Questions or comments? What?
Sir Reeve,
Chris?
Vicky, okay, I'm gonna be wrong here a little bit, but, so they pledged, the Knights pledged 550,000, and they pay 5,000, 10,000 a year?
Currently, they're paying 12,500.
12,000 a year?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're paying interest on the balance as we move along.
Sorry, I had to defer to the Director of Finance. The complex is paid off.
So I can add to that if you want. When I was on council, we had West Ontario funds that belonged to the Wingham Ward and the Wingham Ward only, and the debt for the complex was to the Wingham Ward and Wingham Ward only, and that was the agreement in amalgamation. So we had enough money there to pay the debt off and get rid of the debt and the interest we were paying, so we made that decision. At that time, though, all the agreements stayed in place with the Knights of Plymouth and everybody else to continue to pay their share. It was not, everybody walks away because it's paid. So they just simply have to pay off the amount that they agreed to pay off.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Part two.
Yes.
What they paid for towards utilities, 17,000. Does that work? Does that cover it?
Your
Go ahead.
Worship. Currently, it's just covering the hydro.
So we have to watch that.
That does not include the gas, like natural gas or water. It's just the hydro. So we're going to have to look at that when we.
Meanwhile, 6 months have gone by and we've lost out on that. Can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you carry
I
on?
would have stopped you if you were.
Okay. To carry on for 6 months with no change, it just seems long. I'd rather see 3 months or something like that.
I'm going to take that back to Vicky. Would that be possible? Can we go back to
Your
them?
Worship, yes, I believe so.
Okay.
We can certainly start to meet with them in January and work toward the terms of that agreement. We could, to ensure that the municipality is not contributing toward the hydro costs and that, everything is fair, it could be made retroactive, the utility costs. So whether it's a 3-month or 6-month term, we would ensure that we would recoup those fees
Regardless.
regardless.
Okay. I just want things fair, that's all.
So if I understood that properly, you wanted to switch that to 3 months from 6 months.
If it went 6, it would go retroactive if we made a change. That's what I heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can let the motion stand.
Good.
Go ahead, Trevor.
The one suggestion that I would have, only from the renewal for discussion purposes, is that the renewal term of the agreement fall in such a way that it isn't. So what I will tell you is the agreement was signed the year before the last term of council started. So it went through a whole 4-year term that negotiating not being done. So the concern is that you've got really you could potentially have no continuity between the conversation that happened 5 years ago, your current council and the council coming, your potential new council in 4 years, right? So my question or my concern would only be to ensure that the council of today has the opportunity to negotiate that contract, which I'm saying we're negotiating it today, but in essence is maybe have it so that the term isn't, I think it's gonna fall in great now, 5 years, like you're not gonna go a full term without it going through another council is what I'm saying, is I think now that as long as it's within a 5-year term, the new council's gonna have an opportunity to negotiate it. I think it can't go a whole term of council without negotiating because they really have no authority to change it unless they want to open it up, which you need 2 willing parties to do. So I think my only comment would be to make sure that the term falls into at least into a year term of council is what I would say.
So your concern would be that a new council like ourselves could, we have to be concerned about not up to speed, and we all know what we're going through. So could you take it the other way and make it a 6-year term so that it falls in the middle?
Yeah, I just think in what I went through is I was Councillor Palmer on that committee, and we didn't have a meeting because it was already agreed to pre me coming on to council. So the agreement was a 5-year contract that just started the year before that term of council started. So that actual council didn't even get a chance to negotiate the agreement. They had to live the agreement. And I think my argument is if you are coming into council, you should at least have the opportunity to investigate what those deals are and maybe renegotiate them in your term of council. That's the intention of it. So, my suggestion is don't be asking for a 10-year term is what I'm asking. I'm saying probably a 5 years, probably lots. That'll give us throughout this term and 1 year of the new council in 2022, which therefore then has the opportunity to get their feet wet, staff do as well, and then negotiate that it's not going to fall right at the first 2 weeks of a new council.
That is great. That is good thinking about things in the future, Trevor. And we'll all keep that in mind as we move forward. So, right, Paul?
Just curious, Lee Bailey, what would be wrong with going maybe the 3.5 years, 4 years, so that this council will have our, to me, 6 years is a long time. A lot of things can change in 6 years. That's just my only concern, like with these numbers. Maybe what'd be wrong instead of going to 5 years, why not go to 4 years?
So when we get into negotiations, you guys have hit the nail on the head. Though that has to be discussed. Go ahead, Vicki.
Your worship, maybe possibly we should look at a 3-year term.
Okay.
Maybe that would be acceptable.
Okay, we'll have that discussion with them. Okay, and we'll keep an open mind on all the comments of council today. That's great. So I believe I have a motion on the floor. Do I not? Okay. Any more questions or comments? I call the vote. All in favor? Carried. 6.3.2, extension of the ice season. And we have that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby received the report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Community Service stating December 17, 2018 regarding the extension of the ice season in 2018 for information. And further that the council provide direction to staff regarding the expression of interest from the Hayter Hockey School to run a second hockey camp at the end of the summer in 2019. I'm going to turn that over to Vicki before we call a motion on that one. I want to have a bit of background on costing and your thoughts, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. For a number of years, the North Huron West Cass Community Complex and the Blyth Community Center have operated under the terms of a ice in-out policy, which basically specifies when ice will be installed in each of the facilities. That determination is based on whether there's special events and the economics of it as well. For instance, of like you have the threshers reunion, so the ice goes in October. In the case of the West Cass facility, the ice normally goes in the first week in September. Earlier this year, the previous council approved a request to allow ice to be put into the West Cass facility 1 week earlier. And that was specifically the week of August 27th through 31st. The request was approved based on a number of conditions, which were outlined in the report. Although the group met the terms and the conditions set out by council, there were a number of issues that resulted from their use. These issues had to deal with the amount of staff time that was involved to assist with preparing the non-ice time scheduling and occupying the participants' time. And through use of the pool, the dryland program area, our fitness center, and the basic supervision of the children. Staff also received a number of complaints from the fitness center patrons about the children using the center, and which ultimately resulted in us having to cancel the programs to accommodate the camp. In addition to the programming issues, there were a number of mechanical issues that arose due to the extreme outdoor temperatures. The ice plant really struggled to keep up. In comparison to the previous years, the compressors and the pump log books have indicated that the pumps were running at full capacity. They weren't shutting down. And it was really very difficult for them to maintain the temperature of the ice inside when you had outside temperatures in the 30s. What ended up resulting due to the stress on the system and things, or which may have resulted, is some mechanical failure, which was costly for the municipality. In addition to the repairs, comparison of the hydro bills from the previous years indicate that in the month of August alone, the municipality paid an additional $5,500 just for hydro, which was also a significant increase that we weren't really anticipating. So therefore, based on the issues that we encountered and the additional costs associated with starting up and running the ice plants early, staff feel that the season for 2019 should remain the same and that no extension should occur. We have received a verbal request or interest has been request has been expressed about running the school again.
So before I ask for a motion that's sitting on the books now, I'd like to have an open conversation about the cost of running that school, the benefits as to the cost and the breakdowns, and whether we want to do that a second time. Go ahead, Kevin.
Mr. Reid, I think it's inappropriate to, in the conversation of whether to allow the extension, to blame failure on equipment. Yes, it's trying to do a job that it's not probably designed to do, but much like a car battery, yeah, it fails in the winter, but it started dying in the summer. So to put that in the same conversation just because someone wanted to extend the ice season 1 week, saying that, blaming them for the cost of redoing equipment, I don't think it should even be in that same conversation. Yes, there are extenuating circumstances, but I don't think that should be a decision made on. That should be used as information to use on whether to extend for a week for someone.
So taking that out of the equation and staying with the cost of the hydro and the shutting down of our fitness center because the patrons are there all the time were upset, and the other few things she'd mentioned, and I agree with you. I mean, just because your truck doesn't start doesn't mean it's that morning that did it. But taking everything else into consideration, can we continue to have a conversation about the cost of doing business? Go ahead.
Well, I see upset patrons that are paying maybe for the whole year. And geez, that cost for extra hydro just, it's too much for me. So, what's the income? 73, that was a minimum of, but what was the total? Was that it?
That was it.
That was it. So, is it worth it? 2,000? 1,800?
Go ahead, Kevin.
I agree with your analogy there, but you would have to apply that to all rec services you talk about the patrons of the fitness facility, they pay for the whole year, but I'm pretty sure it's not cost effective either. As far as the length of what they get in for what it costs to run it, to what they bring in for patrons. So, but I mean, you use that in one state, you need to use that in all cases.
Chair recognizes Trevor.
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of background also so it has always been developed that the programming at the rec center would be at a break-even proposal. That, at bare minimum, that was the expectation. So the programming itself would be only at a break-even, if possible. So again, if you don't get enough patrons to operate the program gets canceled. That's the intention of what it's supposed to be operating. Some of the concerns from this particular school, what I would suggest is not necessarily what the council 4 years ago or a year ago when they took into consideration this, was some of these costs. Like I will tell you, I wasn't aware that staff time would be required to support running their program. That's not the intention of it. The intention was you have a business, you want to run your school, your hockey school, it's your business, you run it, we'll provide you the facility in order to support your request to have a hockey school. So, some of the stuff that has been brought up, this is the first time that obviously this information has been brought forward since we offered that situation a year ago. Some of that stuff in saying that, isn't what exactly the council of the day would have envisioned when we provided the opportunity to open up the ice. That was, so some of that stuff is over and above what I think was the expectation of the council of the day. The concern from a hydro perspective, we have to be careful about when we talk about hydro increases. We need to talk about whether it's usage or if it's price. Because if the usage is the same, but the price is higher, we don't have any impact on that. But if the usage is significantly higher, then you're taking into consideration that it is under your control because you chose to open it one more week than it was normally feasible. So we have to take into consideration when you talk about increases, if there's variability and do we have the ability to control those variables? Because if we don't, then we can blame a lot of things, but we can't blame the Hater Hockey School for the price of hydro that went up 25%, if that's the case. I don't know, but that's why it's be careful about when we talk about overages and costs, what the cause and effect are. And but I would suggest that my concern has to deal with the patrons of the complex and the residents in which utilize that. The intention of it is for the municipality, is for the residents of North Huron. That's the intention of it. When you have conflicts of cancellations of programs that are existing because of issues with a new program that was asked, the conversation is that detrimental to the overall scheme of what the Record Center was about? And that's the question. And maybe the Hater Hockey School has some concern, has their own concerns, or how they're going to mitigate those things or changes. We don't know. They're just expressing a verbal expression of interest that they might want to talk about doing it again. I think the conversation I'd have is that before I would accept anything, my conversation would be that how is these issues that we are seeing as a staff and a municipality, how are these mitigations going to be helped by that particular committee or group? Because if they're not, well, obviously we can't negotiate or can't figure out how to mitigate those issues. We're really at a standstill about supplying the program and supplying. I think is a great thing for the municipality, but also you got to understand who's who bears the cost? It's the residents of North Huron that bear the cost of it, it's not a user pay situation. Because if it was, the cost of the hockey school would go up significantly in my mind. So I think that's the conversation that has to happen. So I'm not necessarily saying at this point, no. I would like to get some more information from the school and how they interpret what we've provided here and see where we go from there on a conversation basis. That's all my conversation would be at this point.
Chair recognizes Vicky.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few comments on some of the comments made by council members and things. You know, and we have, you're absolutely right in that, you know, hydro does increase and things, but that's where we go back and we look at our log books for our systems and things, because we have to maintain those log books. So we did do a comparison, and the compressor hours in 2017 to get the ice up and running was 431 compressor hours, okay? In 2018, it was 864. That does play into the fact of, directly into the fact about the electricity, and it does show and I agree with Councillor Faulkner about, you know, you can't directly attribute equipment failure maybe to the hockey school, but it does show the stress or the additional work that was being put on the system to keep that ice at that temperature. And the other thing to keep in mind is, in order for ice to be put in, like, the temperatures have to be cooler, and we have to have everything has to be at a proper temperature for it to go in. To provide this ice for the last week in August, we had to start that ice plant up 2 weeks before that. So we're already battling in the weather, you know, just running it the last week in August. Well, we had to start 2 weeks before that. So just to put the ice in for that school. So it did cause quite a bit of issues on the system. The other thing, just touching on Councillor Syke indicated about the staff time that was involved. I wasn't here, so I'm going on the basis of what staff advised me of. And what was happening is that the kids that were coming in for the school, they weren't, the hockey school did not plan for them to be there on the ice all day. They planned for them to use the ice for like an hour and a half here and an hour and a half there. They weren't planning for the full day of activity. So then that's where staff had to get involved in coordinating and developing a schedule to occupy their time during non-ice usage and things, and trying to address it that way. So, I just wanted to clarify when we were talking about that, what that looked like, so.
Could I just make a suggestion for council and staff then, from what we've heard so far? Can you take this back to the Hater group, and we're not interested in doing the 1st of August, but we have 3 arenas. And we should have time to accommodate them somewhere in that, on the natural and ordinary function of our facilities, and see if they're interested. They're not going to get too many townships open up their arena for them ahead of schedule, especially when I hear we're running it 2 weeks before the August. It wasn't just the last week. So I'm suggesting that council ask staff to go back to Hater and have that conversation with them, that we don't mind them. You're going to have a conversation about the cost of doing business, because we're not losing money. And you're going to have a conversation about, we have 3 arenas, and can we make this at a different time schedule? How does council feel about that? Are we fine with that, or do we want to discuss this further? Go ahead.
Reeve, through Reeve to Vicky, what's the lifespan of these pumps? Any idea?
I don't have.
Like when it's 800, like it's doubled just for, well, it's 3 weeks of work. Yeah, that's substantial if you understand equipment. And you know, you're looking at $5,500 or $5,500 repair bill sooner than what would happen normally. Don't get me wrong, I love it when kids want to do this. It's recreation, it's learning. But to only be on the ice for that hour and a half, like, ooh, I have trouble there. You know, it's a hockey school. Be out there all day, you know, is my feeling. But so it adds to what you're suggesting, is have a conversation with them and see if they can change their needs and go from there.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Paul.
I think hockey school, they wanted early because of hockey's coming on, right? All I can say is that they got a heck of a bargain when they got it for X number of dollars. And I think you say we gotta really look at pricing. They took advantage of somebody there.
So can we just give direction to staff then? I don't think we need a motion, direction to staff to follow up on the conversation we just had. Is that okay?
Yeah, so we have a motion in front of us, so what we could indicate is further that council directs staff to discuss the cost and other implications of last year's Hater Hockey School, something along that line.
Okay, did I call that motion? No, I didn't call the motion.
No, that's a proposed or draft motion for consideration.
So if you want to add that and read that back, I'm fine. We can have a motion on it.
So you just wanted to cover it?
Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I would just say, based on what the CAO has mentioned, I would move that we receive the report, as well as the motion that's read here, and further that council directs staff to have discussions with the Hater Hockey School regarding the implications of the 2018 hockey school and their proposal and their possible proposal for 2019, and leave it at that.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a seconder, Chris Palmer. All in favor? Carried. So I have nothing for the Public Works Department on my schedule here. I have nothing for the Fire Department on my schedule here. Oh, I do, I'm sorry. Oh, this is a big one, guys. Okay, for the Fire Department, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accept the report from the Fire Chief of North Huron regarding our renewal of fire agreements with Morris Turnberry and South Huron. And further, the Council adopt the bylaw 2012-2018 and 113-2018 authorizing the Reeve and Clerk to sign a fire agreement on behalf of the council with Morris Turnberry and Central Huron for fire suppression services. Can I have a mover? Trevor?
Sorry, Reeve, I will move for discussion purposes.
Super.
To allow the fire chief to have a conversation about what the agreement looks like.
Super. Do I have a seconder? Okay. We'll take Kevin Faulkner. Chief, it's your game.
Thank you, Chief Bailey. So I'll just highlight my report. The changes that we've implemented are in the report. The big one, of course, is the method of calculating the fees. So it's proposed that the method calculating the fees for service will be based on an annual weighted assessment percentage for North Huron fire coverage area in the municipality, and will increase by the Ontario CPI each year. We're proposing that we cap the equipment reserves at 100,000, and if more equipment is required in any particular year, councils have the authority to approve an increase in that. And that the expenses related to fire calls will be borne by the respective municipalities or the township. So the amounts are outlined in my report. Something to note, the percentage is there, the proposed fee for the operational portion of the budget is there. The fire calls, that is an amount that I had to figure out for budget purposes only. Okay, so what I did is I averaged the calls over the past 5 years and in the calls in each municipality and the cost of those calls, and it worked out to approximately $500 per call. Now that was for budget purposes only. Moving forward, we're going to charge the actual costs back to each user. So it's a user, basically a user pay theory for the fire calls. And the one big part about all this is it will be reconciled at the end of each year. The reconciliation amount for all parties will be calculated using the adjusted weighted property assessments for the year the service was provided. Also, in the event that there's a boundary adjustment as per 11.1 of the agreement, that the change will be captured in the annual weighted assessment updates and reflected in billings. So we have worked through this agreement with the CAOs of each municipality. And this is what we've come up with. ACW doesn't expire until next year. So we'll start the process in the spring and have theirs brought forward for next year, but it'll be done on the same basis as these two here. So I'd like to thank Dwayne and Donna, the Reeve and Deputy Reeve, for their assistance and input with these agreements. And I'm willing to take questions.
I wonder just before, okay, go ahead, we'll take the questions first. Any questions for the fire chief? Go ahead, Ken.
When ACW comes in, any idea what they're what forecasted?
Yeah, so they're I'm sorry I didn't put that in there, but they're 3.28%. Yeah, and their call total was I think an average of 6.
Just because there's a large discrepancy between the numbers for the other municipality versus that one. I just wonder what that.
Yeah, so
change to.
So I think so. There's theirs would be going to. That's a different sheet. If they were included in the totals here, yeah, they were an average of 6 calls per year, and their amount was just over 17,000. So it reduced a little bit as well.
So if we can, I'm going to take a few minutes, and I'd like to Dwayne to address a meeting that Mr. Sipes, myself, Donna, and him had, and what we looked into and the effect it's going to have on the costing for North Huron for next year. I'd like Trevor to speak to it after that. We were all in the conversation so that the community has the understanding of what's happening, because we are changing the way we're doing business and the effect, long-term effect it's going to have based on the growth around North Huron. And Dwayne, if you don't mind picking up from that point.
Thanks, Reed. So just in terms of this process started as Fire Chief Bedard has indicated earlier this year. And what we did was we used the assessment numbers that were available at that time, which were based on the 2017 assessment numbers. Every year MPAC does assessments of properties, and there were properties, new development in Morris Turnberry and Central Huron that took place in 2018, but when Fire Chief Bedard ran the numbers, it was based on 2017. So what we have is there's some new development that has taken place that for the purposes of the exercise that we undertook, was not captured. What we determined though is that the assessment numbers for 2019 have now been released. Those 2019 assessment numbers include that new development that was completed but not assessed. And as Barbara already indicated, when we do the reconciliation, the adjusted reconciliation, it'll be based on the adjusted weighted assessment. So, so let's look at 2019, okay? When we do the reconciliation in 2020, in later 2019, we will get adjusted weighted assessments, and those adjusted numbers will be used when we do the reconciliation in 2020. But the reconciliation is based on the year in which the service was provided. So it also is a bit of a, I'll call it a safeguard in terms of if there's an adjustment 2 years down the road and it goes back to 2019 or 2018, there's ability for us then through this provision to go back and to recover that adjusted weighted property assessment.
Thank you very much. Trevor, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, so basically in layman's terms, what it really is if we're looking really at the development of the Cowbell property and any of the right span properties that were developed in Morris Turnberry at the time when the agreement was being discussed. So in 2017, those properties weren't developed and the assessment on those properties would be very low. Same with the Cowbell property would be relatively low in Central Huron. The intention of that reconciliation is to now, once we have the municipality in which they have Central Huron and Morris Turnberry, they will do a supplemental tax implication to those when they're reassessed, and they will get tax dollars based on when the actual development was finished. Therefore, the conversation is that we are servicing that property today, and it's a substantial cost to us if those properties were to have a fire request. So in essence of making sure the reconciliation has that part in it is to make sure that the costs associated to those, making sure that the fixed costs of the service, of having the service, are allocated appropriately to each in the municipality. The calls for service is where everybody's gonna get their fair share of what it actually costs in order to operate a fire hall and a fire service. So the question, and through you, Reed, the question I had to Chief Bedard was, could you indicate like a calls for service, the costs associated with those calls? Could you confirm, is that supplies, labor? Is there equipment buried into that cost too? It's just supplies and labor.
So it's mainly, it'll just be labor. It'll be firefighters' wages. The supplies and all the other costs are already in the budget that they're paying for.
Right, okay. That's what I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah,
so the cost per call will be for firefighter wages for that call.
Okay.
And then the buildings, the trucks, the equipment, the masks and everything is built into the budget.
Right.
Okay, for everybody to pay.
Right.
Okay.
And they'll be paying their percentage based on these weighted assessments.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Just a little
Go ahead.
comment,
Chris?
through you to Marty. How many calls are 911 as opposed to fire or hoaxes, things like that?
So they're all 911 calls.
Yeah.
So everybody.
Yes, sorry, they would be in that case.
They all go through 911.
Accidents, maybe.
So there are not so many accident calls. Like there are alarm calls that may be false, but there's also a reason for those to go off, like to be set off. And I'm thinking along the line of in a long-term care home where they have the automatic alarms, or even a school, somebody might pull the alarm or things like that. So we do have provisions in our bylaws that after so many false alarms at a particular place, we have the authority to bill out for that call. So we keep an eye on the number of false alarm calls at a certain property. And if they have a lot of them, then we will invoice them for those calls, based on the fees for services that is in place right now.
Go ahead, Trevor.
The one other question I wanted to ask is, through you, Reeve, is are the calls for like incidents where the fire department's called for a vehicular accident or stuff like that, those costs are what we are trying to be recovered through our fire mark. Is that correct? So I guess my question is that would we provide that service in Morris Turnberry or Central Huron to an accident in that particular? Because you're just saying fire calls. Is it fire calls in all? It's incident calls. Okay, that's what I just wanted to clarify.
And the fire mark portion of it, is for structure fires only. And we send that in and then get whatever insurance money is available. MVCs, like you were stating, normally if it's a resident, we wouldn't bill them. But if it's a non-resident, we have the means to invoice them for that call.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? I'm going to call the vote then. All in favor? Passed. So there's nothing for building department 6.6. There's nothing for childcare on 6.7. 6.8 CAO, 6.8.1 SLED grant application. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby received a report from the CEO clerk dated December 17th, 2018 regarding the budget reallocation on behalf of the North Huron Economic Development Committee. And further, the council allocate $1,000 from the 2018 economic development budget to the 2019 economic development budget for the community walking tours project, and authorize the director of finance to adjust the 2018 budget accordingly. Could I have a motion for that, and then we'll speak to it. I guess we'll speak to it first, Dwayne. Go ahead.
Well, I'll move for discussion.
Okay, let's move for discussion by Trevor. Kevin Faulkner seconds it. Okay, if you want to take that one away, Dwayne.
Sure. So in 2018, the county introduced a new funding program to municipalities and nonprofit organizations in the county. And there was essentially $10,000 allocated or available to lower tier municipalities that we became aware of later in the year. And it was discussed by the Economic Development Committee. And essentially the committee put forward a funding application for council to consider, which was for the design, development, and the purchase of resources to create 2 self-guided walking tours, one in the town of Blyth and one in the town of Wingham. The overall project cost for those 2 particular walking tours was $9,000. If the project is approved at the county level, the county would contribute $7,500 of the $9,000. The North Huron marketing or promotion budget, there's some money available there of $500, and the North Huron Economic Development Committee to top it up to the $9,000. Basically discussed taking $1,000 out of their budget to top it up to the $9,000 to see this project go ahead on the basis that it receives funding from the county. The projects that are approved through the program have to be completed within 12 months of approval.
Questions, Trevor?
Through you, Reeve, Bailey, and I think it's probably the wording, but explain to me what it means by authorizing the director of finance to adjust the 2018 budget. My understanding would be the 2018 budget, just that $1,000 wouldn't be used, and then it would be just and then in reserves, it would just go into the 19 budget. Is that in essence what we do?
Yes, basically.
Okay, so it's just the wording on, like, we're not adjusting the 2018 budget. The budget is staying the budget. It's
Yeah.
just the fact that that money hasn't been used in the budget, so it's gonna be carried forwarded to 19.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Kevin.
Mr. I have a comment. Just to inform the council as to offshoots of what can happen with what this grant money was doing. There's been a new small business started up in Blyth, taking people on bicycle tours of the walking tour path. Patrons of coming into Blyth can take the walking tour themselves. I'm not familiar personally with the one in Wingham, but I know that it was designed to incorporate the buildings that some of our businesses were in and what they were used for and who owned them. And it's quite a heritage tour of your village, but it also brings people past your businesses. And it has started one small business in Blyth already, just spurned off of this walking tour.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the vote. Pass. Okay, the clerk vacancy, 6.8.2. That the council of the township of North Huron hereby received a report from the CEO clerk dated December 17, 2018 regarding the clerk vacancy. And further, the council authorizes CAO clerk to revise the clerk manager of IT job description as outlined. And I don't see it outlined.
It's in the report.
I'm going to let you speak to that then, Dwayne. Well, actually, first, let's keep this on the same track. Can I have a motion? Paul Heffer and Rick McBurney. We're going to have Dwayne speak to this and give us a breakdown on it. It's the conversation we had the other day, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so just go ahead. Update the council.
Sure. So earlier this year, our clerk manager of IT tendered his resignation and accepted a full-time IT position. And the time of the resignation, the election was underway. We had IT services that we had to deal with in terms of securing a provider. And we entered into a lame duck period. And during the lame duck, there are restricted acts that are placed on a council, one of them being the hiring and the firing of employees. The clerk position is a statutory position of the Municipal Act. In order to hire that individual, there has to be a bylaw passed by council appointing the individual to the position. So there wasn't much we could do during the lame duck period. Now that lame duck no longer applies, council is in a position to fill that position. In terms of just for benefit of council, you are required, or council is required to have a clerk. So as an interim measure, what was done at the time was essentially I was CAO deputy clerk, and as an interim measure, I took on the title of CAO clerk as an interim measure until such time as lame duck. And Carrie Ann O'Rourke, who most of you, if not all of you, have met, she was retained 24 hours a week to assist us with the election and also other clerk-related matters. So we're seeking authorization essentially to commence the hiring process for the clerk. With respect to the IT piece, we have retained Continuit to provide our IT services. So in terms of the skill sets required for a clerk and the skill sets required for an IT, those are two different skill sets and not skill sets that you often find in one individual. So that's very remote. So in terms of moving forward with the position as it presently exists, if we were to advertise, it's unlikely we're going to find a candidate that would have those two skill sets. We have retained Continuit to provide our IT services. So now we're dealing with the clerk portion of the role. In terms of at a staff level, we are required under legislation to have a health and safety program. We do have a health and safety committee that is quite active. They meet on a monthly basis. But there's been identified need that health and safety program needs some additional resources. So the proposal here is for the clerk to assume the clerk responsibilities as proposed, but also to take the lead on the health and safety program for the municipality. We're required under the Ministry of Labor to have a program. Staff has been, the program has been operating very well, but there are a number of areas that we do need to do some work on, and we view this as a resource that can assist us in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Chris.
Through you, Rafe, to Dwayne. With all due respect, do we need one? There are other municipalities that don't. They just have, the one. Are we at a size? I just need to know. Learning. Are we at a size that definitely needs that position filled? Just like to know.
Through you, Reed.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. Essentially, so for the past, since July, I've been doing a double duty.
How's it been going?
It's we do need a clerk. We need an individual who I have a very full plate, and there are additional things that there's a lot of policies, a lot of bylaws to review and to do. Gary Ann has been very helpful in that regard, but as far as she's not interested in increasing her hours, and there's things that I'm doing that are clerk related, that if there was somebody able to take that work on, then I could focus in on in terms of what it is that my job entails.
I have a quick question.
I'm split.
Oh, you're good. The Carrie Ann is gone then?
Carrie Ann is with us for the time that we need, but at maximum of 24 hours a week.
Hey, Trevor?
So one of the concerns is, from perspective, is the clerk is a legislative responsibility that every municipality has to have one. Whether you have an individual doing that role completely, or you have somebody, it's on the side of their desk doing a clerk responsibility. The issue is, I think we need to look at is the municipality has a responsibility to have a clerk, but they have the person who has that clerk title has a legislative responsibility that they are to do X, Y, and Z in there, and if they don't, they could be held that they're not following up on their legislative duties as clerk. So what I'm hearing is I can do my clerk role because I have to do it by legislation, but I may be losing something else that may be more important from a municipality role, like economic development or whatever the case may be. That we had this discussion in the prior council as well as, do we need this? So I will tell you one of the legislative requirements for a clerk is records management. Well, I will tell you our records management is absolutely atrocious. Like, we can't find. We have a very difficult time finding records because they're stored in boxes and all that stuff. They're not easily located. They could be in 3 different places or whatever. So there's certain things that have fell behind from a legislative perspective because we've had this clerk role put in on the side desk or on the corner of somebody's desk, and it really shouldn't be that place. It should be really dedicated. Here's your objective. Now we can hold that individual accountable for that role. Because right now, I don't think we can do that. That's my opinion.
Any other questions or comments on that?
I'd like to read, it was just, our wages are huge. And I think all of us wanna, okay, we gotta kind of hold this to move forward. So that's fine. You answered my question. And Deputy Reeves helped with that, and that's good. It's, stuff that we need to know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Good question. Good question. Any other questions? Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, Bill. So this health and safety would tie really well in with the clerk's position, like
I would say it would be on her desk, yes. And Dwayne, I'll let you follow up on that, but I think at the county level, it's on their desk. Yeah. And I want it's your employees,
Yeah, so just in terms of on the health and safety side, there's policy and programming that goes along with that, and that tends to fit in with, in terms of that perspective. You'll often see, though, a health and safety within a human resource department. We don't have a human resource department. And so I think that in terms of on the policy, the programming side of things, it fits within the scope of that clerk role.
Thank you.
Any more comments or questions? In that case, I call the vote. Trevor Sipes and Kevin Faulkner. First and second. Okay.
A vote or a motion?
There was already a motion on the table. So that's the
Wasn't it?
motion.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was a vote.
We can read them back if the conversation is too long, because I kind of forget sometimes too. It's okay, we're all human. Correspondence, council reports. Any councilors like to report on where they were and what they did? Or is that might show up at council members' reports? So what? Yeah.
Just the leave activity report first.
Yeah, so council reports, oh, I see what that's the heading, okay. So I'll start first with activity report. Been a very, very, very busy beginning. I think I've been in a meeting just about every day for 2 solid weeks. Last week I was sworn in at the county. I have been set on as the county representative for Community Futures for Huron, and that is where small businesses want to start up. They get resources from there. And ironically, as it may sound, I used to work for them 20 years ago. So I met with the North Huron Economic Development Committee, and it was a nice meeting. We got to know each other, and I put forward the plan and the direction I think I would like our council and our committees to go. They were quite receptive, and we will talk about that again, and nobody's surprised of what I would have said there. Nobody sitting at this council should be anyway. I sat in on the Wingham Business Association because we didn't have a rep for that. We will, starting with their next meeting. It was a good meeting, and they're working on their different ideas they have. One of them is to win the free space on the main street of Wingham. So we hear a lot of this in towns around us. It's a fantastic thing. So I believe on our website and a few other places, you can get the information. If you've got a small business at home, or you've got a small side business, or you're thinking about creating a business, you can apply for this. And I believe there's funding, and again, people doing the job that I used to do, which is help you get started in business and show you the ins and outs of how to make a business work. So highly recommend, if anybody's got some ideas out there and they're trying to figure out how to get it up and going, they should go there. I helped at the committee dinner, which a lot of us were there. It was a lot of fun working with you folks. It was a lot of fun meeting the people I met on the campaign trail. So a few other things, but those are the important ones, or the ones that stand out in my mind. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to councils now for council reports. Councilors reports, sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
Mr. Reeve and fellow councilors, for your information. On the December 5th, I attended a BIA meeting, and they were reporting back on to what had happened the previous weekend, where Blyth had reinstated a new Christmas parade. So on Friday, November the 30th, They started off with the lighting of the lights at the Memorial Hall. It was very well attended. Inside the Memorial Hall was an artisan market that ran all day and all night to 11 o'clock at night. And so I went by at 10:30, and there was many people still going through it. It was very unique artisan market, tying into the some of the culture that they are trying to promote in the area of textiles, using textiles for art. The textiles are from everything from spinning wool to dyeing it to using it for doing portraits, and it was quite interesting. They were actually using canvases that were covered with beeswax, and they were imprinting the yarn into the beeswax and making a mosaic. It was quite interesting. All the vendors were they judged it a great success because there was people right there from the first time it opened right till the end. On Saturday was the Santa Claus parade. There was about approximately 1,000 people on the street during that parade. And there was 55 floats that were entered into it. 48 of them were local businesses with indirect contact with Blyth, which was more than what they first anticipated they would have for bringing back another parade. They plan to make it annual. There was a slight surplus, so there's seed money for next year. At the meeting there, it was just still fresh that all the reports hadn't come back in because it was only 3 days after the parade. But it was they were quite happy with the results and what extra businesses and people have brought into town and towards the businesses.
Okay. Thank you very much. Other councillors? Seeing none. Trev, did you want to speak?
Well, just under 8.2.1, there is some policing costs that I want to communicate to council as the Police Services Board has talked about this. So during the conversation with regards to disbandment, there has been some conversation about some legacy policing costs that have come up as to what is now required to pay out based on the fact that the policing is going to be disbanded. So when I talk about legacy costs, what I'm talking about is in the agreements predating this Police Services Board, the previous Police Services Board before me, in their agreement, the police association, the members of the association, the officers were able to carry forward on-call time and annual leave. So they were able to, whatever they had of on-call time and annual leave time available to them at the end of the year, they were able to carry that forward indefinitely. That was an agreement that was signed with them way back before I was. So what has happened is because of disbandment, these costs are now, and not only just because of disbandment, the negotiations that happened in January with the Police Services Board negotiating team and the association, that was one of the parts from my perspective that we no longer could have. You are not going to have unlimited time to carry over. You're gonna so what has been written in the agreement today, if the police service was to stay, was any on-call time from January 1st to November 30th or October 31st would be paid in November if they hadn't used it for in lieu time off or whatever the case may be. Any on-call time used in November and December could be used in January, and if it wasn't used in January for lieu time or whatever, it would be paid out. So in essence, you're only getting it for 1 month. When the disbandment happened, well, that no longer happened. These costs were going to be paid regardless. However, the intention of the Police Services Board was to even out these costs over a longer period of time. Because of disbandment, we don't have that option. We don't have the option to spread them out over multiple years of time. So what the historical was is the officers would have this unlimited bank time, they would retire and they would be paid for a year. So the police service would be one person short for an entire year, cover the costs and the wages and the expenses, and then rehire after that. So in essence, what's happened is that we've now come up against a number which is going to be about $190,000 gross, $190,000 that is going to be paid out to the officers effectively before the end of this year. So the intention was that council and the police services board had approved it to happen because of the disbandment to get it paid. Council and the CAO and Donna had thought it was in the best interest of this council to hear this information before it gets paid out, ultimately to provide you with the information about what this relates to. So what that in essence is the $190,000 that would be expected to be paid in this year is going to be absorbed by the budget in 2018. So in 2018, there was extra money budgeted for additional officers pre-disbandment. We had put in the budget for additional officers because they wanted 2 officers per shift, if you recall any of the public meetings. So those were left in the budget from July to December. So that money was at the time going to be the additional money that was going to be left over in the policing budget was going to be moved to 2019 to cover the transition costs of the one-time costs associated with the bringing on of the OPP. So there is going to be a reduced amount of money left in that budget in order to cover some of those one-time costs. So it is in the best interest that this council understand that, because the Police Services Board is going to be providing a budget to Donna with regards to the cost of the association from January the 1st to February the 21st, okay? But those costs are not going to be included in that budget because they're already going to be paid out before this year end is done, okay? So it was thought from the staff perspective that this council understand those costs because they are going to have some impact to what the 2019 one-time costs and how the ratepayers in Wingham are going to have to be impacted by those costs. So there is going to be some work that the council and staff need to do to figure out how we're going to smooth that out and figure out what we can do and what we can't do. But based on the fact that the disbandment is the nature of the day, we cannot pay them out because effectively after disbandment, they are no longer an employee of the municipality and therefore need to be paid out. So is there any questions with regards to that? I know it was long-winded, but I wanted to be clear that where the legacy costs came in as opposed to what we really had impact to.
Go ahead.
Is this a one-time thing, or is this happening for the coming 2 years that the Wingham Police Board is still there?
So this cost was for the costs that I'm talking about here are costs associated to any time that they had banked from whatever time ago to November. So whatever time they have in December for annual leave left, the chief has moved to January to cover vacation that they've already pre-booked before and was even booked. So there's going to be some costs in 19 that's already going to be pre-budgeted for because of the leaves and all that stuff that they are entitled to under their contract. But that $190,000 is a one-time payment. Like it's not going to be more than that.
And just to follow up that, you asked if they were gone. Yes, we're going down the rabbit hole. It's too late to come back. The Wingham Police will be disbanded. Yeah, because I've heard that conversation in the public too. And no, there's no coming back or no changing with the new council. We are going down that path. Other questions, concerns, comments? Go ahead, Trav.
So I did want to mention a couple of things outside of the policing if there was any other questions, but as you mentioned, we did have an excellent celebration over the weekend on Saturday to in support of the North Huron Food Share. Gary and Marie Lyle, they are the spearheaders of that. I am very happy to be a part of that committee in order to provide greetings, and we basically had a full complement of new council here to support that. They, just for statistics purposes, there was 275 stations available to be fed that day. And I would suggest, I don't know the number, but I looked inside. I would suspect we served probably, not me particularly, but the group probably served more than 200 and probably more than 325. I'm going at more under 350. So those are 350 individuals who have used the food bank potentially, or are patrons of the food bank, or some type of less fortunate that, I take full comfort in the fact that we do our best to make sure that they are the center of the day. And you know what, I go home and I see, I think about a kid that I seen that day where I said, Santa Claus is here, and his or her eyes light up, and I can go home knowing that I've made somebody's day a little better just by saying, Merry Christmas, come on in, we're here for you. That's, and Gary and Marie Lyle, they are the spearheaders, and I would suggest there's probably 50 other ones in that committee. Councillor Palmer's on that committee as well, that really take this thing to heart. The food bank is a valuable asset that we have in this municipality. Here in county has one as well. I think it gets it's not underutilized, I will tell you, from a standpoint of what we talk about. So anything that we can do to support poverty in this community, by providing these people with one extra day or one nice day during the holiday season, I think is a valuable thing. The other thing I did want to comment to was I did want to send congratulations off to a resident here in town, Doug Neal. Doug Neal is a retired teacher here in the municipality, but he's also an avid baseball player, or he was an avid baseball player. He was inducted to the OASA Hall of Fame most recently, and I think that's an accomplishment in itself. So I just want, and Doug's a former teacher of mine. He taught me the things about baseball. So I just thought it was important that this council and the ratepayers know that Doug was provided that illustrious Hall of Fame induction to the OASA, and I congratulate him on that.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Chris.
Deputy Reeve, like you said it very well about the dinner on the 15th on Saturday. There were 40 people helping, serving people, and that feels good. So it comes back to you. You feel terrific at the end of the day. And I'm looking out in the hallway because I was a host inside, and these guys were all big grins and smiles, and it was so nice. Even had a blondie here for a little while. And Whitey, sorry. And it was just a terrific time. I think we've done it 4 times so far. And it's the whole town gets involved, supplying, and it was great.
Go ahead, Rick.
I had the privilege of loading my van up and bringing to the food bank from our Legion and Lions Club in Blyth, our collection and through the Santa Claus Parade. So.
Thank you very kindly. Yeah. That's great, folks. And it truly was a nice day. It was a lot of fun working with you guys. Got to know each other a little better. Okay. We need to pass the legacy. I didn't call the motion yet, though, I didn't think so. So 8.2.1 legacy police costs, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approve paying for the police legacy costs out of the approved 2018 budget. Do I have a motion? Trevor Sipes first. Rick McBurney seconds. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Comments from members. Any comments the council members would like to make on their last couple of weeks, what's going on? Seeing none, we'll move right along to notice of motion. Does any council want to give a notice of motion? Trevor, go ahead.
Sorry, so notice of motion would have to be received by the clerk pre the agenda. So nobody necessarily, no councillor to provide a notice of motion today. Notice of motion would be provided prior to the council agenda going out, and then it would be discussed today as a discussion of that, and then move forward on the next one.
Well, that wasn't my understanding. My understanding was that we could say we're going to bring a notice of motion and do that, but either way, that's fine. We don't see any here, then we'll just keep moving along. It's not getting any earlier. Okay, the bylaws. Here we go. I'll let Dwayne read the bylaws, and we're going to start with 10.1 bylaw number 108-2018.
So being a bylaw to amend bylaw 18/2016, being a bylaw to govern the calling, place, and proceedings of the council, be introduced, read the first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be grossed in the bylaw book.
Do I have a motion? Kevin Faulkner, seconder. Paul, sorry, Paul Hepper. I was going to say Hallahan there, but that was 4 years ago. All in favor? Carried. 10.2 bylaw number 109-2018.
Bylaw 109-2018, being a bylaw to appoint a court of revision for the term 2019 to 2022 for the Township of North Huron. Be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be grossed in the bylaw book.
Do I have a motion? Trevor Sipes, Rick McBurney seconds. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 1003, 10.3, 101-2018.
Bylaw 110-2018, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of North Huron for the period January 1st, 2019 to December 31st of 2019. Be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be grossed in the bylaw book.
Do I have a motion? Anita and Paul. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw 10.4, number 111-2018.
Bylaw 111-2018, being a bylaw to appoint committee and board appointments for the term 2018 to 2022 for the Township of North Huron. Be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be grossed in the bylaw book.
Do I have a motion? Trevor Sipes, Rick McBurney. All in favor? Carries. 10.5, number 112-2018.
Bylaw 112-2018, being a bylaw authorizing the fire agreement between the municipality of Morris Turnberry and the Township of North Huron. Be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be grossed in the bylaw book.
Do I have a motion? Kevin Faulkner, Paul Heffer seconds. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw 10.6, number 113-2018.
Bylaw 113-2018, being a bylaw authorizing the fire agreement between the municipality of Central Huron and the Township of North Huron. Reintroduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be grossed in the bylaw book.
Do I have a motion? Rick McBurney and Anita Van Hitterman seconds. All in favor? Carries. 10.7 bylaw number 114-2018.
Bylaw 114-2018, being a bylaw to authorize a site plan control agreement between the Township of North Huron and 2441 716 be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve Clerk, and be grossed in the bylaw book.
Do I have a motion? Trevor Sykes, seconder. Paul Heffer, all in favor? Carried. That's it for bylaws. We're gonna go to announcements now. I have none. If anybody else has any. Not seeing any. Other business? Anybody have any other business they'd like to discuss? Not seeing any. Go ahead. Yeah, so we have the budget meetings. Do you want to speak to that, Dwayne?
Sure. Thanks, Reeve. So, like the Thank Council, we're looking at the 2019 budget, and we're looking to schedule our 2019 budget sessions. Typically, those sessions are back-to-back in terms of 2 nights. And usually we'll start at around 6 o'clock. It'll go 8 or 9 o'clock. We canvass for some possible dates. We put out there the 14th and 15th as possibilities. Now, we have one counselor who I understand is not available on the 14th. Is there anyone else? 14th and 15th are the proposed meeting dates. We could move to the 15th and 16th perhaps. Just looking in terms of when you'd like to schedule your budget sessions. And maybe just I'll add to that the treasurer is going to do some orientation and training with council in advance of your budget sessions. So looking for possible dates for that to occur.
He's talking 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., which is an evening meeting, which is nice. And on the 15th and 16th, because I've already heard the 14th is not open for a counselor. Would the 15th and 16th of January work for everyone? Okay, I'm not seeing any disagreement, so we'll set that up for that. If something comes up, if you give us a week's notice, because it is hard on the staff to change everything, and of course, Donna already knows my attitude towards dragging things on finances. So we'll move along with that. Okay, we'll set that one for that.
I have one other.
Yep, go ahead.
One other thing, and just in terms of any sort of, I call it visioning exercise perhaps, in terms of, so we will be bringing forward the 2019 budget for your consideration. It's in terms of your priorities, that council's priorities with respect to that budget. We as staff will be preparing a budget as we understand the budget to be. You may have your own priorities and you may want to see changes to that particular budget. Whether or not you want to have any discussions, around the time of the budget, or do you simply want to leave those discussions as part of that whole budget process?
So what I'm going to suggest on that, based on the past, is we will have the budget, I believe, a week before the meeting. You'll have an entire week to go through it. It's going to be a hard budget for 2019. So I would look through it and I would get back to Dwayne and say, Dwayne, I don't see this in here, or this is something I'm interested in. So he's got a heads up, and then we can communicate that back and forth and build it into the budget. We don't have a strategic plan yet, which is unfortunate, but it doesn't really matter in 2019 because I think we're going to get hit so hard that it's going to be 2020 before we actually get up and doing something this council wants to do. So again, the more time you give your staff to look this over, the easier it's going to be to try to fit something in or have a discussion about it. Okay? And don't be afraid to give Donna a call when you get the budget and say, Donna, I don't understand this line. You don't have to wait till the meeting. Donna, I'm sure, or her coworker will be more than happy to have that conversation why that's in there. It'll speed things along because they will be long, hard nights on the budget. Okay? Anything else, Dwayne? Thanks. Okay, well, I just shut everything down. Okay. We're going to go into closed session. So we're looking for a confirmatory bylaw. No, we're not. What are we looking for?
We're just looking for a motion.
A motion to go into closed session? There, we'll do that one. Mr. Sykes is going to put his hand up, and who's gonna be the second? Paul, you're gonna do the second for us. You get those two? Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.